Okay, so what we have here is the Crosman 760 Pump Master. When I was a kid, I had the metal version of this one with the brass bolt and everything, but that was a long time ago. Typically what I do with this one when I shoot it is, if you look right there where that rubber plunger is right there, I typically just add a couple drops of 20 weight here. You could use 10, 20 weight, or 30 weight non-detergent oil. This is 20 weight, and I find that this makes it pump just a little bit easier, but it also holds the compression pretty well. So this has been working for me, and the way I get these little bottles is I go to the dollar store, and this bottle was actually a kind of like a breath freshener that you buy for like $1, and you get like 2 bottles or something like that. So what you do is you just empty them out and fill them back up with oil. So remember your dollar stores, you can always take little bottles, dump them out, whatever's in it, put oil back in it. And I ordered these clips here. These are 5-shot clips, so altogether I've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 shots. So what you're looking at here is a very cheap, inexpensive air rifle. Probably get them for $29.99 or something like that, maybe even cheaper. And then also these Beeman pellets here, about $5 for 500. These are wad cutters. So what I'm going to be doing is doing a shot grouping video just with the factory sights. So just to see how these go, because you don't want to spend a lot of money on shooting, especially if you're going to shoot a lot. So these being a penny a piece are pretty cheap shooting, and they're wad cutters, so they seem to work pretty good with smooth bores at short ranges. So we'll see what happens here. Okay, so what we got here is we used 4 pumps at 15 yards, and it was the 7.7 grain Beeman wad cutter, 10 shots. 400 feet per second was the muzzle velocity. Our elevation was 3/4 of an inch up for the group, which means if you're aiming here, it's going up 3/4 of an inch, and that's on ramp number 4, which is maxed out right there. Which means you might need a little bit of holdover at 25 yards. 15 yards, it's a little bit up, but that's something to test later on though. So what we got is we got 10 shots here. 70% of them were about 1 inch center to center. All of them were about 2 inches center to center. Now this just might be a good day, but or not, but I think it's pretty good for a penny pellet. These Beeman wad cutters are $5 for 500, so obviously they're about a penny a pellet, but when you buy them bulk, they're actually cheaper because you get a discount for the tins that you buy. So what we can predict from this is, if we're doing this at 15 yards, we can predict that this is just maybe the law of doubles, that we could have 70% of them hold at 2 inches at 25 or 30 yards. That's what we're thinking. Or 4 inches at worst case scenario. So in other words, plan for the worst but hope for the best. So at 25 yards we can plan for a 4-inch target, but if we get it down to 2 inches, that's a great day. And that's ramp number 4. So obviously we're going to have to pump it up more than 4 times. 4 times is usually good for 25 yards, but with the elevation on this one, which is different than some, it just doesn't go up far enough for us. So that elevation right there at that level is okay for 4 pumps, but we're probably going to have to give her 10. Just because of the fact that we don't want to monkey around too much with the ramp. We want to try to be spot on at 25 yards. So let me read you off the stats here. This is a quick Chrony test. When One pump, it doesn't really come out of the barrel. Sometimes it gets stuck or just kind of slithers out. So we're going to avoid one pump. 2 pumps is 252 feet per second. And over here you can see the energy foot-pounds. So we got 252 for 2 pumps, 342 for 3 pumps, 400 for 4 pumps, 426 for 5, 455 for 6 pumps, 477 for 7 pumps, 496 for 8 pumps, 523 for 9 pumps, and 545 for 10. Now this is the 7.7 grain wad cutter by Beeman. The reason why we're using this pellet is because it's an affordable pellet, but also the 760 is a very affordable pellet rifle for beginners or for kids. And obviously, you know, if you get the rifle for 30 and this for $5, that's 35 bucks to get started. But if you order these from Pyramid Air, these extra clips here, that's another $5 or $10. So it's still cheap to use this rifle. I would buy as many of the clips as you could possibly get. These are really fun, these clips. So, and also some of you guys, I used to work in a machine shop, but I was thinking about machining a single shot tray for this. But that's something that you guys could work on. And if you guys machine a single shot tray that you think would be a great idea or a great material, let me know about it. I was thinking just a piece of wood in there with the slot so that you can singly load pellets, but it wouldn't matter anyway. I could still fit a 16 grain sniper in this thing because it's plenty long. So back to the stats here. Now a lot of you know the H&N Sniper 15 grain has a very, very high ballistic coefficient. It's way over 0.025, which means that this is going to do very, very good at longer ranges because it loses velocity very gradually. Anything with a high ballistic coefficient retains a lot of its initial velocity. So that's a good pellet to think about. So with 10 pumps, we're going 400 feet per second, and we're 5.33 foot-pounds, which is pretty much the same, you know, as if you did 10 pumps with the lighter pellet. The difference between these two is the ballistic coefficient is 4 times better. 3 or 4 times better with this pellet, which means that at the same distance, much of that energy is going to be kept, whereas much of the energy of this is going to be lost. This will go down to 2.5 probably. And that's because of the aerodynamics. The pellet is a flathead wad cutter. So I'm just telling you guys from a perspective of if you're into foot-pounds. Now, if you're in a flat trajectory, or if you're a flat trajectory guy that would like to have a nice flat trajectory, this Hypermax here, 5.2 grain, these are kind of expensive. I wouldn't buy these though, but 625 feet per second. There's the energy foot-pounds. The HN Barracudas, these are kind of expensive too. But we're close to 600 with 5.62 foot-pounds of energy. And just to let you know, the Hypermax, the ballistic coefficient is going to be that of a wad cutter, so don't get too excited about that high velocity. It'll shoot flat, but this is going to have much, much more energy. The energy of these light ones are going to die out. However, the Barracuda, for the lead-free, 6.48 grain, they've been able to make this work out pretty good for a ballistic coefficient. I think I've tested this one at 0.020. So it kind of acts like a medium-sized round nose, even though it's a longer pellet. But once again, it's lead-free, so it's very light. So that's why it doesn't have the ballistic coefficient of its big brother, the 10.34 grain, or whatever size that is for the Barracuda, 10.65 or whatever it is. The Hypermax for 3 pumps, is 400 feet per second for that. 1.85 foot-pounds of energy. The Barracuda with 4 pumps here is 400 feet per second. The reason why I pumped the Hypermax 3 and the Barracuda 4 is because I wanted to match that 400 FPS threshold, which is typically what you should have for 25 yards if you want some kind of reasonable flat trajectory. You need at least 400 feet per second. So that's the default that I go by usually. So hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you could see the energies and things like that of these and the speeds. The sniper right here, 15 grain, going 400 feet per second, 5.33 foot-pounds of energy. Now that sniper, if you guys are squirreling, I would recommend 5 foot-pounds of energy, which means this is going to be a point-blank to 15-yard squirrel hunter. I would use the sniper because they're very heavy. They don't lose much energy or velocity at 15 yards. So I would recommend 15 yards with the 760 with a very heavy pellet if you're going to be squirreling. And that's because of the simple fact that this doesn't reach out too far. This is on 10 pumps, by the way, the 400 FPS. But, you know, if you wanted to go 25 yards, like I was saying, we're thinking that this will be about, you know, anywhere from 2 to 4 inches, and depending on the size of the squirrel or whatever. So you have to take that into account, or if you're going to put a scope on it or whatever. But once again, it's a smooth bore. These aren't going to get you the kind of accuracy you want, but you know, they'll do good some days and bad on other days. But it was interesting to find out that that these did pretty well. The reason why I wanted to test these was because of financial reasons for people that like to shoot a lot but don't like to spend a lot of money. This combination, this pellet right here, and this pump-up rifle right here, and then the spare clips, I think, I'm not sure, but I think they give you 4 of these for like $5 on Pyramid Air. So you got 30, 35, 40 bucks for your kid to get started right here. So for around 50 bucks, if you have a kid or something that wants to get starting shooting, he could be on this. This one did come with the scope, by the way. So you have to remember it's going to come with the 4-power scope. For a lot of you that want to know about the 4-power scope, about what kind of range you get, a 4-power scope, the duplex reticle lines will usually cover up 1 inch, a 1-inch target at 25 yards. And if your accuracy is in between 2 and 4 inches at 25 yards, and the size of a quarter, which is about 1 inch, and you got the crosshairs on there, if you're going to sight it in for 25 yards, I would recommend doing a 10-shot group, and then like you see are 10 shots, and then after that doing your click values where you have to move it over like this. I could move this over if I had a scope and move it up a little bit. And always verify with quite a few pellets before you start clicking your turrets. Some people click after individual shots, and you can see if somebody did that here, they might be up here, they might be up here, so you don't want to do that. You want to verify at least 5 shots before you start clicking away at your click values. And also when you make the adjustment on the click value of your scope, it doesn't settle right away. It takes a while to settle. So what I do with my scope sometimes is I'll pump up the rifle a few times, fire it dry, pump it up again, fire it dry, just to get the vibration so that the scope on top can get vibrated into that setting. Because with some scopes, when you make the setting, it doesn't really lock in until you bump the scope a while or a little bit. So sometimes it's good to kind of bump the scope with your hand maybe, or take a few shots first. And so that's one of the reasons why you want to shoot 5 at a time, 10 at a time to verify your turret settings, and then go from there. So I think that this rifle here, I think that it's been my experience I can shoot it just as good with open sights than I can with the scope. I found that to be almost true. So whereas some of you, maybe a scope might be better, but definitely you don't need a high-powered scope on this, just a 4x32, because of the simple fact that the accuracy isn't 1 inch at 25 yards, which means unless you try different pellets that might work, but I don't think 10 shots would do that with any other pellet, including the competition ones. I've tried them before. Generally at 25 yards, it's going to be wider than 1 inch for sure. So a 4x32 scope would be fine. The only time you want to do a 9 scope or 9 power is, say, if your accuracy level is, you want half a quarter, which would be a half-inch target, then you would go to 9. And then if you want a quarter-inch target, then you would go to like 12. And then anything beyond that, if you're shooting ants at 25 yards, of course, you could go further and further. But no matter what kind of magnification you have on, with your scope, it's got to match the accuracy of the rifle. So if you're doing 3-inch groups at 25 yards and you've got a 24 power scope and you're trying to shoot at an ant, you're still going to get 3-inch groups. So the ant will be here and the pellets will hit like this. So if you guys get what I'm saying, you want to make sure the accuracy matches the scope. And I feel that the accuracy of this rifle warrants it for anything up to a 4 power scope, but nothing more. So you don't want to, even though they're easy to take the scope on and off, you want to save your good scopes for the more accurate rifles and put on a 4x32 with this one. If you can get one mil-dot reticle off of Amazon, you can find them, and I think that would be great for this rifle. This rifle has no recoil, so you don't have to worry. If you're going to use a spring piston rifle, remember that you have to know if that scope is recoil for air guns or not. You have to know that for sure. You have to verify that because of the harsh recoil. But these pumpers here, you can put whatever you want on these because they don't recoil like spring piston air rifles. So yeah, a good mil-dot 4x32, even a cheaper one. I've seen them $20 ones that some guys were using mil-dot reticle, and apparently they said for 25 yards they work pretty good. So, but yeah, they're cheap scopes, but everybody has different experiences with scopes. But there's certain etiquette that comes with scopes too, like you don't want to max out the turret too much because you have the rector tube that can move around, and it can get pretty soft in there because the spring ain't as tight, whereas the more expensive scopes, the spring is tighter, so it allows you to max out the your windage and your elevation a little bit more, so you want to be aware of that. So anyway, here's a nice little layout for you here. So anyway, thank you very much for watching, you guys.